who began his teaching career in 1997. The year was defined also by some massive geopolitical shifts, tragedy, and the dawn of modern pop culture, highlighted by the handover of Hong Kong to China, the tragic death of Princess Diana, and cult classic series South Park and Buffy the Vampire Slayer premiered, and the long-running show King of the Hill. I'd now like to call Miss Shannon Perugino to speak on behalf of John Drum.
As many of you know, Jonathan Drum has chaired the Social Science Department meetings for roughly 20 years. And if you've ever attended one of those meetings, you know that John never arrives unprepared. There's always an agenda. One page, printed, single-sided. So in honor of Mr. Drum, tonight's retirement speech will follow a similar format as provided at your tables. Don't worry. Unlike one of his exams, it should be possible to finish in the allotted time. And our opening prayer. Lord, grant us the confidence of a man who continued using a desktop computer long after the rest of the building had switched to laptops. Grant us the patience of someone willing to teach formal research essays to teenagers for 3 decades. And grant us the ability to navigate our way home tonight better than John can navigate his way to the washroom at the camp. Amen. We then move to our intentions for this evening. Tonight, we gather to celebrate a teacher, a department head, a front of house manager, retired coach, mentor, husband, a son, and a friend. But most importantly, we celebrate a man who has spent decades believing that education matters. Not just marks or curriculum or his famous red pen, but education. And the kind that challenges people and leaves them better than it found them. John has always taken his work seriously, whether it was preparing for the front of house volunteers with multiple meetings, detailed slide presentations, or spending his entire day on a Saturday constructing the set for our musical. Legend has it, if there was a 2x4 that needed screwing, he never missed. John believed that if something was worth doing, it was worth doing properly. We will now move into item 3, department business. I first met Mr. Drum 15 years ago as a very terrified student teacher. I needed to complete my history placement. He reluctantly handed me his little baby, which was the American history course. And I cried. I cried more than once. And John sat there and let me cry. But then he taught me. He taught me how to build a lesson. He taught me how to organize a classroom. He taught me how to hold students accountable. And most importantly, how to tell stories. Because that's what he's always done. He tells stories. And not because they're entertaining, although they usually are, but because stories make people care. And students remember history class because Mr. Drum made it feel important. And over the past 14 years as my department head, that never changed. He was always willing to share his ideas. Sometimes those ideas arrived by way of carrier pigeon or a typewriter. You know, Mr. Drum, technology was not always your strength. But curiosity was. He never stopped thinking about how to make students understand something just a little bit better. And I will miss those random texts in the middle of the summer with a new article titled Teenage Brain. I think I'm going to use this next semester. And despite being the department head, he somehow convinced us all that we could do things we never imagined. Case in point, geography. As someone who has not willingly thought about the boreal forest since I myself was in grade 9 geography, John somehow convinced me that I could teach academic geography. And every morning he would meet with me and prepare me for my own lesson. Contour lines, glaciers, climate graphs. Mr. Drum had accidentally turned me into a geography enthusiast, which I think is one of his greatest accomplishments. That, and being able to sleep anywhere, including his own back deck overnight, or underneath his teaching desk after a night of too many pints. Okay, I digress. We move now into item number 4, which is any comments or concerns. At this point in a department meeting, John would invite everyone to voice any concerns that he should bring back to the admin team. So in the spirit of that, John, there are a few things we would like to address. The first one, you hold your computer mouse backwards. No one understands it, but somehow it works. You are a geography teacher who can explain every physical process shaping our planet, but you can become lost in the basement of a department store. Or the Rito Center, so lost that mall security had to call your wife to help you find your friends. Number 3, your pat downs at school dances remain a source of fear for students and colleagues alike. But somehow all of these things became part of your legend, because students knew that underneath these strict expectations is someone who genuinely cared about them. Your classroom is not just room 229, it's a museum of artifacts, flags, sometimes questionable, inside jokes, artwork, and once again, stories. Every item is connected to a student who mattered enough to be remembered. Item 5, your retirement plans. As John enters retirement, we have a few predictions. Stacy should probably hide the credit cards. There will be more comic book purchases, more albums for your record player, more music blasting from the basement, time spent at the cottage in Parham, maybe a few more magical mystery tours, maybe a lunch more than just your apple slices, and time enjoying life beyond Pavlov's bell. Finally, no puking on the first day of school. And lastly, yes, he does that every September. And item 6 are closing remarks. Mr. Drum often tells the story of meeting Stacy because they happened to sit alphabetically beside each other in class. And it's one of the reasons he still insists on a seating plan today. Because you never know what might happen when people are placed together. And I think that's a really fitting way to think about John's career. For decades, students have walked into his classroom, were placed beside new people, new ideas, new challenges. Many discovered strengths that they didn't know they had. Many learned resilience. Repeated zeros on their daily homework checks would definitely help. And many left believing that they were capable of more because Mr. Drum expected more from them. And that legacy doesn't retire tonight. It continues in every student you taught, every teacher you mentored, and every colleague you supported. John, your mother's gift for teaching clearly lives on through you, and Holy Cross is a better school because you were here. Congratulations on a remarkable career, and of course, joining the infamous Wemyss Wall in the Social Science Department. Thank you.
Wow, Shannon. Thank you so much. I mean, coming from you, those it's high praise indeed. Let me just put it that way. But I think you touched on something, and the reason why is because you said it. As a history teacher, I've always emphasized the story aspect of my courses to make them feel more alive, and you obviously caught that. So actually, after a period of writer's block concerning the speech, because I think I'm better at talking about other people than myself, I think I should just go back to what I try to do, and that is just tell you a story, my story. But don't worry, it's only for a chapter, so I'm not going to keep you too long. So chapter 1, origins and celebrities. Now, as long as I can remember, I always felt like a child of a famous movie star or celebrity. Wherever I went in Kingston, students, teachers, and adults would walk up to me and tell me about the best teacher they ever had. Someone who, quote, literally changed their lives. And that person is Helen Drum. They would tell stories and make me promise to give mom their best wishes before they move on, and make me memorize a name and repeat it to them. My mom ultimately has become a hero to me, and I've always spent my entire career just trying to meet the standard of Mrs. Drum. She always said teaching was a calling that requires inspiration, hard work, and dedication. And I've just tried to live up to her words. Now, you would think being the child of Mrs. Drum would make me the model student. Actually, I was far from it in grade school. In fact, after experiencing an early version of the open concept classroom in grade 1 at St. Thomas More, it was strongly recommended by administration that I move on to a more structured learning environment at St. Joseph St. Mary's. And that's just a polite way of saying I was expelled in grade 1. And there I met the first teachers who changed the direction of my life. Sister Myrna and Mrs. Christina Kennedy taught me the importance of shocker, rows, structure, and rules. I met my match, and boy did I test them over a period of time. But within 2 or 3 months, they phoned my mom and they said, I was back on track. Now anyone who has been in my class has probably noticed that I have a penchant for rows, structure, and rules, because it allows kids to work both independently and together, 2 things they have to do in this real world. And that ultimately is exactly what I needed. And let's be honest, to quote my mom, I was a bit of a shithead in grade 1. But these teachers taught me to do 2 things, listen and learn. And that leads me to chapter 2, listening and learning. Eventually, this spirited, I guess some people would say modernly ADHD kid, settled down and entered Regi in 1985. And I was introduced to new teachers who further shaped my views of classroom excellence. In a somewhat ironic twist, this formerly expelled kid felt the calling to follow in his mother's footsteps. And I had the privilege of beginning my teaching career in 1997 at Holy Cross with the very same teachers who taught me at Regi. Speaking of celebrities, I felt like I was walking into the Academy Awards. And so for the first 5 years there, I spent my time in workrooms doing 2 things, listening and learning from these amazing teachers who are now my colleagues. And then lo and behold, I became a department head in 2005. Now talk about intimidation. So what did I do? I kept listening. I kept learning. From Mrs. D'Onofrio and Mr. Cassidy, who taught me the importance of quiet leadership and work ethic. To Mr. McCombs and Mr. John Nader, who showed me that teaching is not a sprint, but rather a worthwhile marathon. To Ms. Ann O'Brien and Mr. Sean Roberts, who introduced me to the arts and the importance of stage presence, even in the classroom, because the classroom is a stage. And finally, to the late Mr. Whitley, who showed me the art of a great story as only he could deliver it. And as an added bonus, I had the privilege of sharing a workroom with my sister-in-law, Kristen Check, who was an amazing teacher in her own right and always kept me organized. And believe me, if you ever need help staying organized, just call a member of the Check family and they'll be over before you know it. But speaking of checks, that leads me to chapter 3, romance and late nights. Holy Cross has been blessed with amazing teachers over the years, but no one had a greater impact on my life than my wife, Stacy. You are truly the rock star, and I've been in absolute awe of you as a teacher. You once said to me a long time ago, you probably don't remember, that it might be an actor's 100th performance, but always remember it's the audience's first time seeing it, so you have to give it 100%. I remember those words whenever I taught my lessons, even if it was the 80th time doing Vimy Ridge. Switch it up. Make it more interesting. It's their first Vimy Ridge. So I always try to follow that. And after 8 seasons as an assistant volleyball coach, and as Mr. Manny can attest, trust me when I say my strengths are definitely not my volleyball skills. You took me into the arts department, and I assumed various roles, whether that be stage manager, front of house, or working late hours, building sets, and sharing cold pizza and laughter with your dad and Vince. You gave me the opportunity to get to know staff and kids, and I got to see them in a completely new light, the stage light. Who knew that the girl who did not even remember dancing with me at our grade A graduation, despite photographic evidence I might add, would not only become my professional inspiration for my entire career at Holy Cross, but the person with whom I will now celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary as on my first September as a retired teacher. And on that note, we come to chapter 4, endings and beginnings. I look out around the room and I'll be honest, it doesn't feel real yet. But I do look out at all the people who have been so important to me over the years. But at the same time, if you look around, look at all the young people here. And it's inspiring to look at the next generation of so many talented young teachers. And I'm confident the future is bright. But there are also 3 special young people who are so dear to my heart. Ethan, Simon, Mary, who all either attend or graduated from HC. I was so lucky and proud of watched you grow up in Holy Cross and see you mature into such incredible young persons. Soon Mary will become the new Ms. Drum when she graduates Teachers College in the near future. And I know she will be an amazing teacher. And it really is fitting that the torch has been passed once again, Mary. Holy Cross, like the table right there, is like my family, and I'm a proud member of it. All great stories are based on epic characters, and the staff I've worked with have been incredible. When I first began teaching, the overhead projector was the pinnacle of technology. And now I'm ending with D2L, an aging smartboard, thank you, Mr. Pendergast, and of course the arrival of AI. And I have to admit, though it's probably not a shock, I have to admit that maybe my old school style of textbooks, desks, and rows might not reflect the modern zeitgeist of the collaborative learning space of 2026. I once told Terry Daniel that I was starting to feel like a classic rock band playing at a hip hop concert. So I decided to make 26 my last tour, or at least before I got expelled from yet another school. Holy Cross, I will cherish the memories we've made over the years. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to have taught with all of you. But all stories end. And although we are no longer colleagues, I know that we will remain friends. And now, I guess that I'm retired, I get to live happily ever after with Stace. The end. Thank you.